5:30 in the morning, pitch black outside, and blasting through tinny bus speakers, loud enough to rattle the windows, is a song about drugs, sex, and violence, sung by a 16-year-old who thinks he's untouchable. 25 tired students. One bus. No escape. But what none of those kids knew was that the quiet senior sitting 3 rows back was about to make their music disappear. For months. And they would never, ever figure out how. If you've ever been trapped somewhere with no way out, stuck listening to someone else's noise, someone else's disrespect, with nobody in charge willing to help you, you're going to love this one. This is a story about quiet, patient, absolutely petty justice. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it. Picture a public bus, the kind that crawls through narrow streets in South Asia before the sun even thinks about rising. Metal seats worn smooth by 1,000 commutes. The smell of diesel and last night's rain. And on this bus, every single school day, 20-something students packed shoulder to shoulder, half asleep, riding to the same college. Our narrator. Let's just call him the commuter, because that's really all he wanted to be. Someone who got from point A to point B in peace, had been riding this route since 11th grade. By the time he hit 12th grade, the bus had become routine. Familiar faces. Familiar stops. Familiar, blessed silence in the mornings, broken only by the hum of the engine and maybe some quiet chatter. Then the new batch of 11th graders showed up. They came in loud, not just in volume, in presence. The kind of loud that walks onto a bus like it owns it. Bags slung low, headphones around their necks like jewelry, that unmistakable swagger of kids who've just discovered they're no longer the youngest in school and want everyone to know it. And within the first week, they'd found the bus's one weakness. It had Bluetooth speakers. By day 3, the bus wasn't a bus anymore. It was a nightclub with wheels. The first cracks of frustration. Imagine trying to catch 10 more minutes of sleep before a full day of lectures, and instead your skull is vibrating with bass. Not soft background music. Profanity-laced Nepalese rap, lyrics dripping with references to drugs and degrading content, cranked to a volume that made conversation impossible. At 5:30 in the morning, to a bus full of strangers who never agreed to any of it. The commuter remembers the first few days vividly. That specific kind of exhaustion where your body is tired but your nerves are wide awake, buzzing with irritation you can't do anything about. He'd stare out the window, jaw tight, watching the streetlights blur past, wondering how 4 boys had managed to hijack an entire bus of people twice their number. It wasn't just him. Up and down the aisle, he could see it. Girls wincing, guys putting in earphones just to drown out other earphones, an old habit of eye-rolling that had become the bus's unofficial language. Everyone was annoyed. Nobody was doing anything. So, eventually, someone did. Confrontation. And contempt. Politely, at first. That's how these things always start. A tap on the shoulder. Hey, could you turn it down a bit? It's pretty early. A reasonable request, delivered without hostility, expecting a reasonable response. Instead, they got shrugs, smirks, the kind of dismissive glance that says you don't matter enough for me to care what you think. One of them would toss out something like, everyone likes it, chill, while the others laughed along, phones still glued to the speaker, volume untouched. The commuter tried too, more than once. Kept it civil, kept it calm. Can you at least play something without all the swearing? Some of us have to sit through this for an hour, twice a day. He wasn't asking for silence. He wasn't even asking for good taste. Just basic consideration. What he got instead stung more than the noise itself. Word got back that the group had been mocking the people who complained, calling them uptight, calling them boring, sitting in the back of the bus, laughing about the old people. Kids barely a year younger than him, who couldn't handle a little music. That particular flavor of disrespect, being dismissed, being laughed at behind your back for simply asking to be treated with basic decency, is something almost everyone has felt at some point. A coworker who ignores your request, a neighbor who plays music at 2 a.m. and rolls their eyes when you knock. It's not really about the noise. It's about being told, without words, that your comfort doesn't matter. Escalation. And a dead end. Weeks passed. The music didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. New songs, same profanity, same disregard. The commuter and a few others decided to go over the boys' heads entirely. They spoke to the bus driver, hoping an adult authority figure would shut it down with a single stern word. Nothing. The driver either didn't care enough to enforce it or didn't want the hassle of policing a bus full of teenagers every single morning. Complaints to the school administration went nowhere either. Bounced between departments, met with vague promises and zero follow-through. The classic bureaucratic shrug, not really our problem. That's the moment worth sitting with. That feeling of powerlessness. When you've done everything right. You asked nicely. You escalated properly. You followed the rules. And the system just didn't respond. For a lot of people, that's where the story would end. Frustration swallowed, tolerated, endured for the rest of the year because what else can you do? But the commuter had already noticed something. A small, unglamorous detail that nobody else had thought twice about. The turning point. His stop was first on the route. Every single morning, before a single other student boarded, he was already sitting in his seat, which meant every single morning he had the bus completely to himself for a few minutes. No noise, no music, no rap blasting through the speakers, and the bus's Bluetooth system could only pair with one device at a time. The idea arrived quietly, almost embarrassingly simple, the way the best plans often do. He sat there one morning, phone in hand, watching the empty seats around him, and thought, what if I just got there first? Not to blast his own music, not to start a new war of volume, just to occupy the connection, silently, invisibly, before anyone else even had the chance. There's a particular kind of satisfaction in finding a solution that's completely, unimpeachably within the rules. No confrontation, no shouting, no rule broken, just being first. Legally, technically, undeniably first. The execution. The next morning, he tested it. He got on the bus, heart doing a strange little flutter of anticipation. The nervous, excited kind, like setting up a prank you're not sure will land. He pulled out his phone, opened Bluetooth, and connected to the bus speakers before anyone else was even at their stop. Then he put in his earbuds, playing his own quiet music, and settled back like nothing had happened. Stop. The bus filled up. And then, right on schedule, the group of 11th graders climbed aboard, phone already out, thumb already swiping to their playlist. Nothing happened. The commuter watched from the corner of his eye, doing his best impression of someone who wasn't paying attention at all. He saw the flicker of confusion cross the leader's face, saw him swipe again, try again, frown at his screen. Bluetooth's not connecting, one of them muttered. They fumbled with it for a solid minute, disconnecting, reconnecting, blaming the bus's outdated system, blaming each other. Eventually, one of them managed to force a disconnect on whatever was linked, which was, of course, the commuter's phone, and grabbed the connection for themselves. He simply reconnected, calmly, quietly. Without even looking up from his own screen, they tried again a few minutes later. Same result. Their playlist would flicker to life for a few seconds, distort, and cut out, because his earbuds were already pulling the audio elsewhere the second he reclaimed the pairing. To them, it looked like their music kept mysteriously dying. To him, it was a rhythm he was starting to enjoy. The frustration spreads. To them, this time. Within a week, the group was baffled, truly, deeply baffled. They started interrogating the rest of the bus. Is someone's phone connected to the speaker? Who's playing music? Heads shook, shoulders shrugged. A chorus of innocent not me's rippled down the aisle, because, technically, none of them were. Nobody ratted him out. Whether out of loyalty, amusement, or sheer relief at the sudden silence, the rest of the bus became an unspoken alliance of people who'd simply had enough. The commuter never announced what he was doing. He didn't need to. The results spoke for themselves, morning after morning, in the blessed, ordinary quiet of a bus that finally sounded like a bus again. He was careful, too. Smart, even. Every so often, he'd deliberately skip a morning. Let them have their connection. Let their playlist blare through for a day or two, just enough to keep suspicion from calcifying into certainty. Just enough plausible deniability to keep the scheme alive for the long haul. Months went by like this. The group never figured it out. They blamed faulty Bluetooth hardware. They blamed the driver. They blamed each other. Never once did it occur to them that the quiet senior 3 rows back, earbuds in, eyes on his phone, was the entire reason their mornings had gone silent. Here's the moment that makes it worth it. Not a single dramatic showdown, but a slow, accumulating invisible victory that played out every single morning for the rest of the school year. Picture the group huddled around a phone, tapping Bluetooth settings for the 100th time, genuinely stumped by a problem they could never solve because they never knew what the actual problem was. Picture their frustration curdling into resignation, the swagger draining out of them a little more each week, replaced by the quiet, confused irritation of people who've lost a fight they didn't even know they were in. And picture the rest of the bus, including the commuter, sitting in peaceful, undisturbed silence. No profanity at dawn, no bass rattling the windows, just the hum of the engine and the sound of a city waking up outside. For the first time in months, sleep-deprived students could actually rest on the ride to class. Conversations returned. So did a kind of quiet dignity that had been stolen from all of them, one blasted verse at a time. For the commuter, there was no dramatic confrontation, no scene where the antagonists were publicly humiliated and forced to apologize. The victory was quieter than that, and arguably sweeter. Every morning he reconnected his phone. He wasn't just claiming a Bluetooth signal. He was reclaiming something that had been taken from an entire bus full of people who'd asked, politely, to be heard, and been laughed at instead. Was it petty? Absolutely. He'll be the first to admit it. But sometimes the system's meant to protect you. The driver, the school, the adults in charge fail to act, and you're left to find justice in the small, legal, untouchable cracks of a situation. He never broke a rule. He never shouted. He never even revealed what he was doing. He just got there first, every single day, and let quiet consistency do what confrontation never could. If this story scratched that itch, if you love watching someone get creative, patient payback without ever breaking a single rule, smash that like button and let us know in the comments. What's the pettiest, most satisfying revenge you've ever pulled off or witnessed? Subscribe for more stories just like this one, and we'll see you in the next video.